welcome back to Raja Yoga presentation. We have so far dealt with the dimension of asanas after yama and niyama, and we have been discussing on pranayama, the fourth limb of Ashtanga Yoga. In pranayama, we studied the basic preparatory practices in the form of cleansing called kriya, to cleanse the whole system. Then we started understanding the sectional breathing to correct the wrong habits in breathing, abdominal breathing, thoracic breathing, clavicular breathing, and we now go into the pranayama proper. The whole essence of pranayama is to slow down the breathing, in contrast to increased breathing rate in cleansing. We have the reduction in the metabolic rate. Predominantly there are two schools in pranayama, the Hatha school with Kumbhaka as mandatory part, Vasishtha school in which inhalation and exhalation are slowed down systematically. We have been seeing that if Kumbhaka is not done properly and we do the pranayama practice, we may end up with great problems. These fast breathing techniques, the rabbit breathing, the tiger breathing, the abdominal fast breathings, Shashankasana breathing, all these things can help in remedying these problems that arise due to Kumbhaka. This is the neck relaxation, and we now come to the pranayama proper. Various types of pranayama. Ultimately, both the schools, Kumbhaka school as well as the Vasishtha school, lead to the same goal. The goal is called Kevala Kumbhaka. Kevala Kumbhaka is automatic stoppage of breath due to deep relaxation. When the mind becomes calm, the breath slows down and simply stops breathing. That is the whole dimension. But the Hatha school is always beset with dangers, and the bandhas are mandatory. Even if you do a small mistake in the performance of the bandhas, you end up with problems. If you don't do the Jalandhara bandha properly, you may end up with the lunacy or neuroticism. If you don't do the Uddiyana bandha, you may end up with gastrointestinal problems. And if you don't do the Mula bandha, then we'll end up with diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, and even leading to colitis. Therefore, it is but mandatory that we do these bandhas, all the three bandhas, Jalandhara bandha, Uddiyana bandha, Mula bandha, along with the Kumbhaka. And even among the 1,000 people who are taught with proper Kumbhaka, if they make a mistake, they may end up with danger. Therefore, we have chosen the so safe path, the Vasishtha school, in which there is no mandatory part of Kumbhaka, no Antari Kumbhaka, no Bahir Kumbhaka. It is simply effortlessly breathing in slowly and slowly breathing out effortlessly. And this is the whole essence, and it is this school that we use extensively. With that, now we pass on to the types of pranayamas that we use here. The pranayama techniques can be classified into four main categories. The first one, the balancing type pranayama, sensitizing pranayama, cooling and developing awareness pranayama, resonance and laya pranayama. The first one is the balancing pranayama, Anuloma Viloma series. Breathing in, breathing out through the left nostril, through the right nostril, and alternate nostril. The breathing through alternate nostrils has a great significance in pranayama, and the whole science is unraveled. This is called Swara Yoga. Most of the physiologists for a long time, they thought what difference it makes whether you breathe through the right or through the left. After all, it is the air that goes in, the oxygen that is consumed inside the lungs, and the carbon dioxide that comes out. But in the late 80s, it was given to Dr. Khalsa in California, who wanted to test a hypothesis of the school of yoga, that it makes a big difference if you breathe either through left or through the right, because they are innately connected to the Chandra Nadi and the Surya Nadi. In the Pranamaya Kosha, Surya is burning in character, which is related to the right nostril breathing. He put the electroencephalogram on his brain and asked the person to breathe only through the right nostril, another group only on the left nostril, and he measured systematically what happens to the electroencephalograph. And to his great amazement, he found there was a big change, a big difference, a very significant difference between the two EEG patterns. And those who breathed through the right nostril, he showed more of the beta wave patterns and so on. And we have also done extensive research over this, measuring what happens to the autonomic nervous system when you breathe through the right, when you breathe through the left. Breathing through the right is called Surya Anulom Vilom Pranayam. Breathing through the left is Chandra Anulom Vilom Pranayam. And we have found in general that when you breathe through the right nostril, it is burning in character. The oxygen rate increases almost by 50 to 60%, and there is the stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system. The exactly opposite happens with the left nostril, called the Chandra Anulom Vilom Pranayam, and here there is a cooling effect. Parasympathetic comes into picture. There is a greater balance, energy conservation, and therefore what has been postulated and has been talked about in our Yoga Shastras for years and centuries are being validated today by scientific research. More and more sophisticated research are on the offing to understand the mechanisms of the left and the right nostril breathing, how it goes on changing from left to right and right to left almost every 4 to 5 hours once, and that is the change that we have to see. So these are called Anulom Viloma series, and Nadi Shuddhi is the one that brings balance. It balances the breath between the left and the right nostril, and innately it brings a balance between the Ida and Pingala nadis. These nadis are in the Pranamaya Kosha. In the center there is the Sushumna, and on the right and the left we have the Surya and the Chandra, and these are also called Ida and Pingala nadis. There is subtle channels through which the prana flows. When the prana flows through the Surya Nadi, there is burning in character, and therefore this can be used very effectively as a therapeutic measure. We have doing extensively the use of the right nostril breathing or the Surya Anulom Vilom Pranayam for reducing obesity, a very simple means to reduce the weight. People go for workouts and do all sorts of weight reducing, calorie expending practices, but when they come back, the craving has not reduced, and they eat again and pick on the weight. But here is a very simple way that we recommend: closing the left nostril in the Nasika Mudra and breathing in and breathing out through the right nostril. One inhalation, one exhalation is 1 round, 27 cycles, 4 times a day, before morning breakfast, before lunch, before evening dinner, and before going to sleep. If you do that 4 times a day, we have recorded that the weight will reduce not less than about 1 kg in 1 month's time. The simplest of the methods. You are working in a very subtle way to bring about the changes. And in our Arogya Dhama, we get so many patients who are able to reduce weight to a great extent, 5 to 6 kgs, and in 2 weeks of their stay, many of them have reduced even 10 kgs without excessive fasting, without the effortful workout programs, but with simple relaxing asanas, with nice Surya Anulom Vilom Pranayam, and that is the beauty of yoga. Yoga works in a very subtle way, intelligent way, and it is very easy for us to understand in this high-tech era where we work with remotes. A small press of the button can open the garage doors and the car enters in. Yet another press of the button can launch the gigantic Saturn rocket into the orbit towards the moon. How does that happen? Just a press of the button will get amplified, and this amplification process through the mechanical things would bring tremendous force, and that goes up. In the same way, a small change in the pranamaya kosha would bring a big change in the physical body, and that is the mechanism, and that is the level at which pranayama starts working. Therefore, pranayama is very subtle, at the same time very powerful, much more effective than even asanas, and therefore pranayama techniques have to be learned very carefully under the guidance of a proper teacher, and realizing all the negative ill effects also along with the positive effects. Nadi Shuddhi is the one that brings balance between the left and the right nostrils. Breathe out through the left nostril, breathe in through the left, breathe out through the right, breathe in through the right. That process of alternate nostril breathing, slow breathing in and the slow breathing out are the key factors of pranayama in Nadi Shuddhi. And as the name indicates, this balancing cleanses inner nadis, and the inner nadis are the channels for prana. Just like in the physical body, we have got blood vessels and the nerves through which the blood flows, through which the nerve impulses pass. Similarly, in our pranic body or the pranamaya kosha, there are large number of nadis, 72 lakhs as it has been indicated in Upanishads, and through all the 72 lakh nadis flow the prana, and that is called the vyana. When the vyana flows through all the 72 lakh nadis, there is a sense of touch that comes up, and there is continuous flow of prana through ida and pingala, and the imbalances show up as imbalances in ida and pingala, which show up as imbalances of breathing between the left and the right nostril. Ida nadi is related to the left, Surya nadi is related to the right, and the Nadi Shuddhi brings a balance of breath between the two nostrils and brings balance of the flow of prana through ida and pingala nadis in the pranamaya kosha, and therefore it is called the balancing pranayama. Very, very vital and has tremendous impact and benefit to public at large, and even for small children we can start giving Nadi Shuddhi, as well as to the elderly. It needs no effort, it can be done any place, any time of the day, and therefore it crosses all the limitations. So, millions of people have been taught Nadi Shuddhi all over the world by our organization, and hardly there is any negative effect, but there are all the good effects. The concentration starts developing, the memory starts developing, the clarity of thinking improves, and those are some of the benefits of Nadi Shuddhi pranayama, and are extremely useful in various diseases like diabetes, asthma and so on. Then the second pranayama called Ujjayi. Ujjayi pranayama is a sensitizing pranayama, and we perform Ujjayi by partially closing the epiglottis and allowing the air to scrub through the trachea and the windpipe, producing a hissing sound. It is not a vocal sound, but it is a hissing sound of scrubbing, the frictional sound. When we breathe out and when we breathe in, you partially close the epiglottis and allow the air to scrub through the windpipe, and that produces this hissing frictional sound, and that is why the term Ujjayi, Ujjayi sound. Invariably, this sensitizes the region near the throat and brings about higher sensitivity for the whole personality. From the sensitizing pranayama, we go next to the cooling pranayama. The three classic pranayamas that are used, Shitali, Sitkari and Sadanta. Shitali pranayama is the one in which you prepare the beak of the tongue and allow the air to slowly move in through the tongue. Feel the cool air entering into the lungs and the warm air coming out through the nostrils. This is the Shitali. It cools our nervous system and brings a beautiful cooling effect. And the next cooling pranayama is the Sitkari pranayama, in which you fold the tongue inwards, touch the tip of the tongue to the upper palate and allow the air to flow through both the sides. And allow the air to go out through the nostrils. Fold the tongue inwards. Enjoyably and effortlessly breathe out through the nostrils. This is a simple technique of what we call Shitkari pranayam. And the third is the Sadanta pranayam. You clench the teeth and keep the tongue just behind and slowly suck the air inside through the crevices of the teeth and feel the cool air going down to the lungs and the warm air coming out, up and out through the nostrils. This is the Sadanta pranayama. These are the three cooling pranayamas which are very, very useful in reducing the blood pressure, in cooling the whole system and in developing fine awareness down to the lungs, called the linear awareness and the surface awareness. From there now we go to the last among the pranayamas being taught here, the Bhramari. The Bhramari produces the humming sound of a bee, producing the resonance throughout the body and brings a wonderful soothing effect to the whole body. And after deep inhalation, when we exhale, we produce the humming sound of a bee, normally the female bee, and those vibrations are picked up by each and every cell in the body. The whole body from toes to head resonates as one whole and brings a wonderful relaxation throughout the body, slows down the breath and calms down the mind, and the mind goes into deep levels of relaxation, calmness, and a wonderful pranayama and very easily done. And even lying down in a bed, the most severe of the patients like cancer patients or the paraplegia people also can do this Bhramari, this humming sound bee pranayama, and is very easily done and with wonderful results. And a complement to this is the Bhramara pranayam, which is more difficult to do that, and we have to produce this humming sound of the bee while we inhale. So fully exhale. Then while inhaling, you have to produce the humming sound of a male bee, a high frequency sound we have to produce. While exhaling, it is the sound of a female bee. While we inhale, it is the higher pitch sound of the male bee. There is a big paradox. In the human species, the female voice is at a higher pitch. It is the higher frequency. The male voice is a lower frequency. Whereas in the world of insects, it is the reverse. In the bee, the female bee has a lower pitch and the male bee has a higher pitch. Therefore, Bhramari produces the humming sound of a female bee, Bhramara produces the humming sound of a male bee. With regular practice, we will be able to generate this male bee sound better and better, and that is the Laya Pranayama, or the pranayama which produces wonderful resonance to bring about calmness of the mind, to bring about all the good effects of calmness and slowing down of the breath. In all these things, there is one thing that is common, that is slowing down of the breath. Therefore, the key features of pranayama has been, number one, normalize the breathing, then slow down the speed of breath from 20 to 18, 15, 12, 10 and so on, and then balance the breath between the two nostrils. The left and the right nostril has to be balanced and kept balanced as long as we can in the pranayama, and that helps us to develop our promotion of positive health. The third dimension is to sensitize the system, which brings continuous growth of the personality. Sensitivity is the mark of progress, Along with that, the cooling pranayama brings the relaxation, and the humming sound pranayama, the resonant pranayama, Bhramari and Bhramara, will help us to generate wonderful resonance throughout the body, and thereby elevates us to higher heights of maturity, calmness of mind. And that is the dimension of pranayama that we talked about. And then we go to the fifth limb of the Bahiranga Yoga, that is Pratyahara. How does Krishna describe Pratyahara? Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmaso yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. Yukta ahara, moderate in eating. Yukta vihara, moderation in recreation. Yukta swapnavabodhasya, in sleep and wakefulness he has regulated, he has brought moderation, temperate in his action, and such a person has the effect in which he is the destroyer of pain. The pain is reduced in this process. Therefore, the whole essence of Pratyahara is to use the senses to gain mastery over the mind. Pratyahara. Pratyahara is composed of two words, prati and ahara. It is to deny the senses of their food. Their demand has to be controlled, and thereby we will be able to gain mastery and control over the mind. Use senses to gain mastery over the mind, that is Pratyahara. Control the senses from rushing towards their object, that is the essence of pranayama. But the famous Sigmund Freud said, no, you should not control your emotions. Control leads to suppression, therefore give free vent to the senses, and that is the way by which you can grow. You will be able to avoid the suppression. But what happened? That freedom practiced led into license. When you look at such societies in which freedom has been used, the freedom has been abused to license, which has caused tremendous amount of student unrest, the alcoholism, the sexual abuse, the drugs and terrorism, family divorces in the ascent, social disharmony has crept up, and in spite of all the riches, affluence and comforts, the whole society is full of misery, tension and stress, and the resultant psychosomatic and psychiatric problems. What does that show? The Freudian solution is no solution. Therefore, there is a big challenge. On one side, if you try to control, then it leads to suppression. If on the other hand, allow free vent for the senses to get into their sense objects, it leads to license and hazards. And therefore, what is the way out? The way out is sublimation of the desires and not suppression, and that sublimation is what we call Pratyahara. Pratyahara is sublimation of desires, sublimations of the senses rushing towards sense objects, and not suppression. And what is the key essence? The key essence is to slow down. Moderation is the key. Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu. So beautifully brought out by Shri Krishna that everywhere you reduce the excesses. Excesses should be reduced. That is the key point in Pratyahara. And that is the framework of moderation in which we have to put our entire activity frame. If only we can govern our activities in this way and not get lost in excesses, then we have a very, very happy life to come through. Patanjali therefore has given the 5-limbed Bahiranga Yoga, Yama and Niyama, a set of do's and don'ts, asana, yogic postures, pranayama, the science of breathing and the prana, and pratyahara, the science of gaining mastery over the senses. In all these things, there is an indirect way to control the mind, because the mind is too haphazard. But now Krishna gives, Patanjali talks about direct control over the mind, called Antaranga Yoga. Antaranga Yoga is to control the mind directly, direct control over the mind. What does Krishna say? Tatraikagram mana krutva yata chittendriya kriyaha upavishyasane yunjat yogamatma vishuddhaye. Sitting on that comfortable seat, having done pranayama and other preparations, now start making the mind one-pointed with full concentration and restraining the thinking faculty and the senses. The person should practice yoga for self-purification. The object, therefore, is one of self-purification. Purification of the mind, purification of the body, purification of the emotions, purification of our understanding and the intellect. And how do we do that? Patanjali has given systematic way to understand ourselves and to gain control over the mind. The first question is, what is mind? According to modern science, brain researchers, neurophysiologists, mind is functioning of the brain cells. Either the brain cells of the left brain, which leads to intellect, or functioning of the right brain, which essentially can be called as emotions or intuition. And when these cells function, we call that as mind. Contained in this ontology is an assumption that mind cannot exist without the brain or without the body. If that is the concept of the modern neuroscientists or neurobiologists or psychophysiologists, what is the concept of mind in yoga? Patanjali says it is a conglomeration of thoughts, it is a ensemblage of thoughts, and yoga is to gain mastery over these thoughts, he said. Therefore, mind is nothing but collection of thoughts. The grossest phase of mind is called chanchalata, and this chanchalata is the haphazardness. The mind goes on thinking and thinking and thinking, and there is no connection between one thought and another thought. There is no between, it is not exploring any one subject, it is jumping from one to another. Sitting here, hearing the lecture, suddenly you think that a fan should be on, and your mind says, how I wish I had been to a garden. Then you think of your breakfast in India, idli, and jump to the sky and fan again. When the mind jumps from one subject to another with no connections whatsoever, that is our grossest phase, that is the monkey mind, that is the chanchalata. And we are what we think we are. What we go on thinking in our mind, we become that. If the mind is all the time haphazard and chanchala and random, we also become random. Our personality also will be random and chanchala. It jumps from one to another. There is no reliability, there is no concentration, and that is the grossest form. All the energies of the mind are just distributed haphazardly everywhere, and there is tremendous wastage of energy as we see here. And from that stage we go to the next phase in which we try to develop concentration. The whole of our education system is to develop this power of concentration. In concentration, the thoughts are all linked with one another, and it explores a particular subject, and they form a nice garland. There are a large number of flowers which are scattered. You bring them and nicely bind into a garland. You have a beautiful garland. This is what our concentration means. The mind which is jumping from one subject to another is all brought into a single subject, and there is channelization of energy. You have to move from the gross level of chanchalata to ekagrata. Ekagrata is the term used for concentration, which channelizes the energies, and the whole of our education system has been geared to develop better and better power of concentration, and we know that concentration is mandatory for success in all our activities, whether it is a computer job, whether it is a teachership job, or anything whatsoever. Everything needs concentration for success. But how do we develop concentration? Predominantly there are two methods. One is the old habitual system, the traditional approach to keep the mind forcefully on the phase of learning, by imposition, by force, by habituation. The child doesn't want to think, doesn't want to study, doesn't want to have concentration, and what does the mother do? What do the parents do? They simply pull the child, now come on, sit, this is the time for you to study, I will not allow you to jump out to games, and you have to write. And probably the mother will hold the hand of the baby and make the baby write A, B, C, and so on. And day after day, when the mother goes on doing, gradually the child learns, and it is much later when the child grows in age, it realizes the importance of that education that has been given to the person by the mother. They appreciate that. This is one way, the conventional way of educating the child. But there is yet another way, that the Montessori way, in which there is exploitation of the liking to play games. Learn while you play. In this system of education, the children are brought to the school and they are told, now you don't have to study here, there are no lessons here, there are no lectures whatsoever, you just come and then play. It's a play home. And when the children come here, there are varieties and varieties of graded games, starting for very, very simple thing, through which the child learns immensely. Most of the children who go into the Montessori system, they develop lot of skill for speaking almost 2 to 3 languages. They learn arithmetic, and their way of learning, the speed of learning is something stupendous. And that shows that when we like a particular subject, it is very easy for us to learn. Concentration is automatic. Enjoy your learning is a key factor in the Montessori system. So from concentration, we have to go to the next, called dharana. Dharana is next step to concentration. It is called focusing. And Krishna says now, defining, samam kajashiro grevam dharayan achalam sthiraha samprekshyanasikagram swam dishaschanavalokayan. Says, let him hold the body straight, head and neck all erect in the same line and still. Now gazing at the tip of the nostril, let the mind be focused on to the tip of the nostril and without looking in other directions. There is complete focusing now. What has happened? We have moved from chanchalata, the grossest phase of our mind, in which the mind is moving from one subject to another subject. There is multiple subjects going through the mind. From multiple subjects, we came to a single subject in concentration, but in a single subject there are multiple thoughts, but all these thoughts are linked with one another to make it a single subject, but from there multiple thoughts, you go to the next, there is a single thought, that is dharana. Dharana is to fix the mind on a single thought. Desha bandha chittasya dharana. That's how Patanjali defined dharana. That is a process of focusing the mind on a single thought. Essentially, we are moving from mind to intellect in concentration and from intellect to memory as we move further towards dharana. Let us understand dharana a little more vividly. Here we are looking at a candle, and this process is called trataka. You keep the candle as the same level as the eye and go on watching at the candle without winking or blinking the eyes, maybe for a few seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, then close the eyes and allow the picture to stay in your mind. This is the trataka leading us to dharana. When the candle comes in your eyes, keep that steady, go on recalling that picture and keep it very steady without any movement of that candle flame, and that becomes dharana. So, dharana is focusing. Trataka is a kriya which aids in dharana. In this process of dharana, what happens? There is energy focusing. We all know about the lens, and when you put the light on the lens, there is going to be focusing. If you adjust your paper, the paper is going to get burnt. Why? All the incident energy on the lens is going to come onto a very sharp focus, and that sharp focus can be the 1/100th of a centimeter, if not 1/100th of a square millimeter in area, and the intensity at that point is going to increase so high that the temperature increases and the paper burns, and that is the process of focusing of the energies. The same thing goes on in laser, in light amplification by stimulated electron radiation, in which it gets reflected again and again between the two parallel mirrors, and there is going to be an intensification of the energy to smaller and smaller areas, which may lead even to the fusion reaction. And this process of dharana was being taught as Dhanurvidya in our ancient times, and Dhanurvidya needs this dharana. It was a very interesting incident when Kauravas and Pandavas were learning their archery from the great teacher Dronacharya. Dronacharya periodically used to give tests, and it was in one test that he has installed a nice parrot on the top of a branch of a tree, and people were asked to stand about 300 yards away, and standing there they should look at the parrot and pull the arrow and shoot at it. Okay, now let us start. But what is the object that you have to hit? Not the parrots, not the eye of the parrot, not the eyeball of the parrot, not even the pupil in the center of the eyeball, but the center point of the pupil of the eyeball of the eye of the parrot. That is the target that was given. One by one the people come, the pupil come, Dushasana is there and he is about to hit. The great teacher Drona asks, "Oh my dear, what are you seeing?" He says, "Why Guruji, I am seeing everything. I see the tree, I see the parrot, I see you." As he starts telling, Drona says, please go back, you can't hit it. Then comes Duryodhana. He says, "I am seeing the parrot very clearly, Acharyaji. Also I am seeing the eye and the eyeball and the pupil. Can I hit?" "No, please go back." Then comes the hefty Bhima, and he comes and adjusts himself and is all set to hit. Then Drona asks, and the Bhima replies, "I am seeing that dark eyeball and the pupil at the center, and the center point of the pupil also I am able to see." "No, you need more practice." Then comes the eldest brother Yudhishthira, and he keeps his focus to the best of his ability, goes on watching and watching and watching, and then tells to his teacher, "Sir, I still see the pupil, and the center point of the pupil. I think I need more practice, isn't it? Yes, you are right, you go back. Finally, when Arjuna comes, he focuses in no time his mind onto that single point, and he says to his teacher, "Sir, you say there is a tree, I don't see any tree. You say there is a parrot on the tree, and there is an eye and the eyeball and the pupil, all that I don't see. I see only that point which I have to hit, which you say the center point of the pupil, of the eyeball, of the eye, of the parrot. I don't see any of these." Drona says, "Go ahead." And he pulls the arrow and hits, it goes tight onto that point. This is dharana. So in dharana, there is one point focusing, and the whole mind is focused onto that single thought, and Trataka is a means for that, and it is the memory way. Do we have any experience of dharana? When you ask, yes, it is the process of recall. Imagine that you heard a beautiful verse, a verse from Bhagavad Gita yesterday, and you are now trying to find out what is that verse, what is that verse, what is that, what is that, what is that, what is that. When you go on recalling and you are dipping deep into your memory store, there is a deep focusing that is occurring, there is an inward search that is occurring, and it is not logical, analytical, discriminative process, but it is a process of inner search, the deep focusing that takes place. That is the dharana. When you go on remembering, suddenly it flashes, yeah, I got it. Pratasmara vihrudi sanspurad atma tattvam. You just remember those lines, that's wonderful lines of Pratasmarana, Stotra. And how did that happen? Your mind went to that power of concentration, went into that focus and went on digging deeper and deeper and trying to bring about that memory store that you have created the previous day. Therefore, we all have the experience of that dharana, but we have not systematically developed it, and therefore dharana is a process of remembering. It works at the memory level, and it is focusing of all the energies, and all the energies of the mind is brought into a single focus. Therefore, the mind becomes extremely powerful like a polarized light which can pierce through our inner subconscious, and if directed properly can cleanse all the muck that is stored there, all the samskaras, all the strong likes and dislikes ever there can be cleansed very effectively. Therefore, dharana was used as a tremendously wonderful tool to cleanse our inner being and bring about the chitta shuddhi. And the next step from dharana is to go to dhyana. Often it is translated as meditation. Dharana to dhyana. If dharana is focusing, dhyana we call it as defocusing. Now, in dharana, you find that you have fixed your mind to a single thought, but there is tremendous focusing, there is energy, polarization, energy focusing, and if you do dharana for a long time, you get completely fatigued out. You cannot do dharana for more than maybe half a minute or 1 minute, and therefore you have to go to the next step. Patanjali says how to do this staying on a single thought effortlessly. That is called dhyana. Dhyana is effortless dwelling on that single thought. Effortless dharana is called dhyana. Here a totally new process starts. In dharana there is complete focusing. In dhyana there is the opposite, that is the defocusing that starts. And a better translation of dhyana is defocusing, but people translate dhyana as concentration. We have seen very clearly the distinction between concentration and dharana and dhyana. In dhyana there is a single thought, and the mind should dwell on that single thought effortlessly, and that is the dhyana that is being talked about, and it is the seventh limb of Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. Dhyana is the seventh limb, and this has been described beautifully by Krishna in this verse. shanai shanairuparamit buddhya dhriti grihitayam atmasanstham manakrutva nakinchidapi chintayet. Says that you take the mind and set it onto a single thought, and when you stay in that single thought, there should be slowness, there is deep relaxation, the metabolic rate is going to reduce, and when the slowness comes, when the breathing rate is coming down, the metabolic activity is coming down in the whole body, the mind is becoming calmer and calmer. There is a natural tendency for the mind just to sleep off. No sleep, sir. Wakefulness, that is the third character of meditation. And once you stay that, there is deep effortlessness and awareness that comes up, and there is deep relaxation. And the last facet is a feeling of lightness, a feeling of expansiveness. There is opening of the mind, there is flowering up of the mind that takes place in that single thought. So though you are keeping that single thought, there is no strain, and your mind is entering into a wonderful, blissful, effortless stage. Therefore, the 5 characters of dhyana: number 1, there should be a single thought; number 2, there should be slowness; number 3, wakefulness, and effortlessness and relaxation with awareness; and lastly, there should be expansiveness and the lightness. Any state of mind in which these 5 aspects are there, we call it as dhyana. That is the 7th limb of Ashtanga Yoga. But how to do that practice? There is a very, very simple technique which has been evolved by our great yoga masters and seers to learn the art of dhyana. That is called japa. Japa is the easy tool for dhyana. And what is japa? Simply go on repeating a syllable or a name or a mantra. Let us take, for example, a Om, or you can take Rama, and you sit there and go on repeating Om, 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 go on repeating in the mind. And the whole objective is to replace all your other thoughts by the single thought of Om. It is immaterial as to what thought you choose, but the mind should be brought into that single thought. The thought can be about a pen, it can be a flower, it can be a lotus, it can be a watch, it can be a Christ, it can be a Ganapati, it can be a Saraswati. Does not matter what thought you have, but go on repeating that again and again in the mind. And this repetition, which goes on, normally brings the mind into the phase of dhyana. But gradually you find that there could be distraction, then we have to use this trick, the trick of increasing and decreasing speed. If the mind is too haphazard, you are sitting there trying to meditate, but the mind is wandering around, and automatically it comes back after a while. Oh, I am sitting here repeating the Om, 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 but the mind has gone off. If this happens again and again too often, you sit for half an hour and the mind goes for almost 25 minutes outside, then what is to be done? It says that go on increasing the speed of japa. The energy that is coming up is not commensurate with the amount of energy that you are spending through japa. Therefore, you have to increase the speed of japa. Om, 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 Om. Increase the speed. The mind has no opportunity to go astray, and within a few minutes you find that the mind calms down, and then you will be able to slow down the japa. Om, 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 Om. Then you are able to slow down. Om, Om, Om. Again, if the mind jumps out, bring it back and increase the speed. This process of increasing and decreasing the speed helps you to stabilize. Over regular practice, you find that you are able to slow down your japa, and yet you are able to maintain the continuity of japa. There is no distraction, and when this happens, you find that you are comforted. Om, Om, Om. There is a gap, and in that gap the mind is silent. Each time you complete a japa, you just touch that silence and come back to the next japa. You understand it's something like a wave in a ocean, waves after waves coming up in the ocean. The first wave comes up and descends down, then that the ocean, then the second wave comes and descends, goes on and on, on and on. Gradually you will see that there is a bed of silence, there is an ocean of silence in which the thoughts are coming and going, the japa is coming up in that field of silence, and again it subsides, again another japa comes, again it goes back, the process continues. If you allow the mind to settle down by giving enough time, then you will find that the mind, the japa starts settling down, the thoughts will vanish, and the Om japa or any japa that you have taken also starts becoming silent. Japa becomes ajapa. Japa starts becoming silent, and there is immense bliss. It is a very blissful silence. It is not an inert stage, and that is the dhyana. So, what is happening in the whole process? The mind in its grossest form, the randomness, was haphazard, running riot, very fast. You bring it under control through concentration, and that is the phase of concentration. The work is at the level of intellect. Then at the level of memory, you had the dharana and you had the dhyana. Dharana is the process of focusing, and dhyana is the process of defocusing. And from there you go to the next level, the ego, the I thought, and the eighth limb is called samadhi. And samadhi, samyak adhiyate, it is samadhi, deep absorption. Samadhi is often addressed as absorption, and it is also translated as super consciousness. It is a state of super consciousness, a consciousness above the normal. So, Antaranga Yoga consists of dharana, dhyana, and culminating in samadhi. Dharana is focusing of the mind, dhyana is the process of defocusing, and samadhi is absorption, jumping inside, jump into a higher realm of consciousness. There is an internal jump that takes place, and that is the samadhi. Prashantatma vigatabhihi brahmachari vrate sthitaha manas sanyamya macchittaha yukta asita matparaha. Said. In this process, samadhi is a merger. What is the thing that merges here? In all our transactions, there is a trifold process called Tripati. There is the seer, the seen, and the process of seeing, the subject, object, and the interaction going on, the person who eats, the thing that is eaten, and the process of eating, the person who is talking, the subject of his talk, and the process of talking. In all transactions that we have, there is this trifold process. Even at the level of meditation, the meditator and the object of meditation and the process of meditation continues, and therefore it is this Tripati that continues, and the culmination of meditation is samadhi, in which the three things just merge together to a single thing, that is absorption. The seer becomes one with the seen, and that is samyak adhiyate iti samadhi. Tadeva arthamatra nirbhasa swarupa shunyamiva samadhi, says Patanjali. As if you have completely lost yourself in that single object. The seer becomes one with the seen. Becoming one with the seen is the samadhi, and that is the definition. Tadeva arthamatra nirbhasa swarupa shunyamiva samadhi. In the Sutra of Patanjali, he describes this thing. What happens essentially? It is a jump inside. It is a jump into the higher realms of consciousness, and you are entering into a new world. Let us see what that world is in our next session. Thank you.